my name is Spencer James Sinclair. I'm pansexual and transgender. Um, when one common misconceptions about transgender people that I think other people should know the truth about is that when a lot of people think of transgender people, they think of it as a woman who wants to be a man or a man who wants to be a woman. And a better way of thinking about it is a man who is constantly confused for being a woman because we're already men or women. And a lot of people don't seem to really understand that at first. So it's, oh, you want to be a man or you want to be a woman. And that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Um, I am not currently in transition. I have a couple medical things I need to go through and take care of first before I can do anything about that. But eventually, in the next couple of years, I hope to be able to start transitioning. Um, I do want to have a family someday. My girlfriend and I are have been talking about it for actually almost, because we've been together 8 years now, so we've been talking about it for a good six. And we got to the point where we already thought of names for our kids. So if it's a boy, it was going to be Vincent Sinclair, and if it's a girl, it's Alice Sinclair. Um, the word discrimination uh, is definitely something that everyone who's in the LGBT community has to sort of define on their own, because there's so many different genders and sexualities. For me, a lot of the discrimination I face for being transgender is not as big as the discrimination I face towards being pansexual. Mostly because being transgender is such um, a thing that I don't feel like I can tell everybody. So a lot of the time when I introduce myself to people I don't know and I don't know how they'll react, I automatically just revert back to saying my dead name or the name that I was born with. And even though most of the people I know will call me Spencer, it is kind of upsetting when you do go to like a doctor's appointment or if you meet someone for the first time and your family is scared for you, so they automatically introduce you as well. And sometimes it just feels like they don't understand what's going on. But for the most part, I don't tell almost everybody. But when it comes to being pansexual, a lot of people don't really understand what that is. And so there's a lot of people saying, well, you're just, it's just PC culture. You're just being weird. There's no such thing. Um, for me, gender has never been a factor of who I pick when I'm in a relationship. It just doesn't matter to me. And so the difference between, being bisexual is that you could pick someone based on whether they're a male or female. And when you're pansexual, gender isn't an issue. You can date men, women, trans women. It just doesn't matter. And because it is very similar to bisexual, but also something that many people who just start listening, like they just think of, when they think of the LGBT community, they think of gay and lesbian people. And then suddenly they hear about bisexual people and then transgender people, and they're like, oh, that's gotta be it. And then you find out, there's pansexual and demisexual and aromantic and asexual, and then they start, oh, well, you're just making stuff up now. um, and that was actually, I was raised with my grandmother, and so when I told her I was pansexual, it's something that she's like, you care too much about labels, and it is something that you do have to deal with it. And most of the time, I just tell people, especially people I know who just don't understand that I'm bi. But it's just one of those things you have to sort of decide for yourself what you're comfortable telling people and what you're not. Um, as a member of the LGBT community, my biggest fear, uh, weirdly enough, is other LGBT people sometimes. Because despite it's such a broad thing, it's basically anyone who's not cisgender and anyone who's not straight. And so there's a lot of people who are gay and lesbian who don't accept other sexualities. There's a lot of gay people and lesbian people, even straight people, who will go up to someone who's bi or pansexual. Like, well, can't you just pick? You know, it's and so they don't accept those members into their community. They say, "Oh, that's not a transgender thing. That's not a gay thing. You're not in there." And weirdly enough, a lot of the discrimination itself for the other genders and sexualities comes from the LGBT community, which is rather sad. There's a lot of lesbians in particular who will not accept male to female transgender people. And they say that, well, it's hard enough trying to convince my family that gays and lesbians are a thing and that this is a valid thing, and I just managed to convince them, and now you're adding all these other things, and now they think I'm just being, making stuff up. And so while I can understand where they're coming from, it is rather distressing to face that much discrimination, that much hate from the people who's in that community. Well, the other thing that I do fear is that me being transgender or me being pansexual will somehow hurt the people I care about. Whether it's when I have kids, whether they'll be bullied because people will know that they have a transgender father, or whether or not the people I care about will always end up accepting me. And that's just a fear that I guess I've always had an underlying undertone of, well, they say they accept me, but is it really true? Did it feel like others were ever grieving for the person I used to be? Yes. My grandmother, a lot of it, when I first told her I was transgender, she would tell me, "Oh, but I named you for your uncle. Spencer isn't a Jewish name. Why can't you just, go back to being, who you used to be?" And I told you, well, that person was miserable. That person is dead now. They're like, "Don't say that." I was like, I am saying that. That person was miserable and angry, and they're gone, and they're never coming back. And it was just very strange to see how people react to that sentiment, is that they don't, they say they accept you, but on the other time, they don't really understand it. They hope it's a phase, and they grieve for who you used to be, which I find a bit ridiculous. My coming out to people, weirdly enough, my family is a very big family, very open. Our family is Jewish, and we have a lot of different races in our family. My little brother is black. My cousin and them are Mexican and then Italian and all these different religions. So when growing up, they were always very accepting of other people's, races, and which in turn, of course, caused me to be just as accepting. And I never thought my family would be as accepting as they were. My grandmother aside, part of our Passover Seder, my Aunt Terry added an orange to the Seder plate to represent LGBT people. And, when I told them I was transgender, they said, okay, you're Spencer now. That's it. If I make a mistake, just, correct me. That's fine. And they've been pretty true to their word. Um, my one thing that I will say is that my little brother cried when I told him I was transgender because he said, "Oh, I wanted a sister. I didn't want a brother. I have another brother." um, and so that's sort of hard to hear. But for the most part, my family has been ridiculously accepting and patient, and I do love them for that. While my whole family is Jewish, I would not say I am super religious. I would say I'm Jewish. So my gender and sexuality has never been a huge deal when it came to, my religious part. Because most of my family, while they are, Jewish, it's not a big deal for them either. Because none of our family is like Orthodox Jews or very, very strict religious Jews. We're all just sort of a bit Jewish. And I would say that if I had any advice for anyone who was gay, bisexual, lesbian, transgender, or any part of the LGBT community, is that if you do happen to be of another gender or another sexuality that isn't as prevalent on the LGBT scale, that don't feel like you don't belong, because as long as you are a minority, and a sexual minority or a gender minority, you will belong in the LGBT community, and don't let anyone else take that away from you. And don't come out because you feel like you have to. Come out when you're ready. And there'll be some people that won't accept you, and don't feel like you have to come out to those people. Because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're in danger, or that you are constantly miserable. And if you are under the age of 18 and still living with your family and you believe that they won't accept you, I know it seems hard, but I would wait until you turn 18 and then you have a place of your own. And coming out is just one of those things that you have to decide for yourself. Don't let anyone pressure you. Don't let your conceived notions of what coming out is supposed to be like dictate what you do. Just do what you feel is safe and do what you feel is comfortable. And that would be my biggest advice for anyone who is in the LGBT community.